Confidence isn't something you're born with or not. It's not just a personality trait that maybe we were gifted with or perhaps we weren't. It's a muscle, and we're able to exercise that muscle. Where is it that you find time melting? What is that activity that you just all of a sudden look up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 hours. I got to move on, because that's where you should be in the world. We don't need to fly to Dallas, Texas and give a TED Talk in front of 25,000 people in order to stretch ourselves. We just need to move slightly outside our comfort zone, and that is the key. As humans, our brains are constantly evaluating a human face that we see. And in the science tells us in 1/10 of a second, we are evaluating that person for, can we trust them? Are they capable?
Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. Today, I'm so excited for you to meet Maureen Porto. So welcome to the show, Maureen.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. I think for our listeners, Maureen and I know each other. She actually is responsible. If you've seen any of our my new headshots or online, she is responsible for those. So, and I think one of the reasons that I wanted to have her on the show is because as business owners, as people that are leading men and women in our fields, how you present online is so important. And and really having a person that can capture that essence of not only you, but you and your business, and really form a connection visually with you and your business. That is so, I think, even more important as we look at social media and all the ways that people find us, website. So Maureen is not only a really smart businesswoman, but is a really just, I want to say like master, but masterful in how she captures people's essences. And Maureen, how did you fall into this? Because I know this isn't how your journey originally started, but help us, understand a little bit more about you and how you found this niche.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for those kind words, Kara. You're a pleasure to photograph and to get to work with, so I appreciate that. I would characterize myself as a lifelong photographer. I discovered my father's film camera, many, many decades ago. And he was excited that I was interested in his hobby. And we built a dark room in the basement, and he taught me how to develop my own film. And I found myself sort of documenting the world around me. And in high school, I ran the yearbook, and it was always just a lifelong passion of mine. My parents are sort of academic, and I think there was this subconscious narrative that I would pursue something a little bit more academic as well. And that hobby was, photography was in the hobby category. So I took a little detour, and I was an investment advisor with Merrill Lynch for about a decade before I had my first son, Jack. And when I had Jack, I kind of went out on my maternity leave and thought, I'm not ready to leave yet. And so I kind of bought myself a little bit more time. And naturally, I was always photographing Jack, my baby, and other people started seeing my photos and asked me to photograph them and their children and their babies. And this little idea that was in the back of my head of like, maybe someday, just sort of came to life earlier than I anticipated. And it was really a lovely way to balance, if we ever do, but still be a mother at home, I should say, and have this small business on the side. And I didn't have time to detour and take all the business classes. I read as much as I could. Podcasts were sort of on the rise. And I just learned a lot by trial and error in terms of launching my own business. But the photography evolved because oftentimes while I was photographing families, I would have a beautiful mom say to me, hey, I just got this big promotion at work and they want to do a press release, or, there's this new platform, LinkedIn, that's, up and coming, and I need a headshot for the interwebs. And, after our family photos, could I get an individual portrait? And I noticed how consistently insecure. We all are when it comes to taking photos, and certainly photos without the comfort of our friends in them or our partner or hiding behind kids. It feels really scary, and it can make us feel very vulnerable. And I would drive away from these sessions, Kara, where I thought, oh my gosh, she was absolutely gorgeous. She's obviously a very successful woman at work. She's intelligent. She looks incredible for these portraits. She's a mom. She's this, what have you. But consistently, I found even the most conventionally beautiful, intelligent, articulate women were finding themselves very, very nervous having their portraits taken and feeling exposed. And I kept thinking, gosh, there's got to be a better way where I can create a space and she will feel less exposed, less vulnerable, and we can actually work together to, help her and get all of the details right so that, we can create portraits that she feels comfortable, where she feels comfortable, and portraits that are authentic, but beautiful still, and really help to shape and tell the story of that business professional. And most important to me is that my client love them and feel comfortable and excited to share them, because that's what drives business.
Yeah.
I think most professionals that we encounter would categorize themselves as being in industries that are, very heavy, in terms of lots of other professionals in the same industries as us. And it's important that we're able to step out online and kind of be eye-catching, right? And attract our ideal audience attention.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to jumpstart connection and separate us from all of the others in our industry.
Absolutely. And I think I'll pick out a few of the things you said that, one is, and we talk a lot on the show about really aligning your gifts, your God-given gifts, talents, abilities to your business. And when you can do that, it can not only serve a need, but it serves your soul. And so the business feels lighter. A lot of times when I say, well, building a soul inspiring business, what is that? It's about building a business that, where you attract business to you with more ease and less hustle. And the caveat I'd say is it doesn't mean you're not hustling and doing a lot of business, right? There's a lot of work that goes along with that. But because you're doing it in a way that feeds your soul, doesn't feel, it lifts you up versus kind of pulls you down, right?
Yes.
And so I love that you kind of started with that in terms of, because then somebody will say, well, what are my soul gifts? I'm like, I don't know. What did you like doing as a kid? What lights you up what feels like less work when you're doing it,
Yes. And
And
I think that's an interesting conversation that I just had with a woman on Monday who is, 20 something years behind me, but finding herself at a crossroads in her career where she has now become a mom and she's on an extended maternity leave and she really wants to perhaps follow a different path. And I said that to her. I said, I think it's important to kind of pause sometimes in our lives and say, what do I enjoy? What are my gifts? What hurts my soul? What do I see out there in the world that sort of bothers me? There's a little bit of a rub. And I think sometimes at that intersection is where we can slide in and help, right? And I think most entrepreneurs, most business people have a servant's heart. And you nailed it when you said you can still give of yourself over and over again to your clients, but you're not depleted. You're actually still filling yourself up because it feels good to serve others. And I did read an article that said, where is it that you find time melting? What is that activity that you just all of a sudden look up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 hours. I gotta move on, because that's where you should be in the world, right? Because yes, it feels like work, but it doesn't feel like work. And I think so many people of our generation have been through the pandemic and said, time is fleeting. Nothing's guaranteed. where do I want to serve? What do I want to do? I'm not chasing dollar signs always. Some of us are at different seasons of our life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But I encounter a lot of business owners that are like, I want to do meaningful work, right?
Yeah.
So that's important too.
Yeah. And I mean, it can also look like, just to kind of call it out, I mean, it could be, um, you're in a sales role and there's certain activities with the sales role that pull you up and certain that pull you down, right? So like for me, building a business in a sales role where the relationship piece of it is far more rewarding for me, and creating opportunities to create more relationships versus like cold calling or other types of things. So it can be, it can mean a lot of different things as to what are those soul filling activities. But I think you're right. Just, looking at what are the activities that drain you, and then what activities lift you, and then try to go more into the activities that lift you, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely.
So, so
Absolutely.
I love that. And then I also love that, a lot of times I think we're prepared along the way. And, I don't think there's such a thing, especially when we're asking for guidance, for what is my path? What do I need to be doing? Like, please lead me in the way that is going to best serve. And then you're naturally led, just like, the clients coming in, and then you discerning a need, a need of, wow, I keep on having these women come to me and they're struggling with confidence. They're struggling with, their own self-worth. How can I lift them up and create a business that feeds that, that helps this kind of niche of people, which I think when you started doing that, it wasn't as common to do branding photography, or that wasn't,
Exactly.
there
I
were
think,
headshots, but not in the way you're doing it. So
right,
go ahead.
right. I
Sorry.
would not say I invented it, obviously, but I think headshots were a lot more cut and paste with just simple backdrops and things like that. And you're exactly right. I found myself relating to the women I serve because I feel self-conscious, or I've struggled with that in the past too. I think most adults would say that, particularly women. And I think when you see a woman that you think she shouldn't have that, but she does, I should feel self-conscious. Why is she? You recognize her pain points and you're better able to help her overcome them. Um, and so it is always an interesting journey. And I think it's rarely linear.
Mhm.
And none of our experiences or our hurt or our pain are ever wasted, right? Everything is part of the journey. Everything informs everything else. I happen to actually, ironically, my father was always nudging me toward the financial services industry. He's like, Maureen, you're great with numbers. He has 6 kids. He kind of guided each of them. And I kept resisting. And I went off to university and I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And immediately I was like, oh, I don't know, the plan to go get, an advanced degree and perhaps my doctorate and go into practice. My heart was just tugged in a different direction. And so I landed in the financial services industry. But I think that degree in psychology helps me see people, helps me see patterns, and it helps me serve my clients. And it's interesting because we've spoken about professional business people who are successful and attractive and qualified, but still play small sometimes in the world because they're lacking confidence. And I noticed some patterns of behavior, perhaps because of my psychology degree, that made me realize and learn that confidence isn't something you're born with or not. It's not just a personality trait that maybe we were gifted with, or perhaps we weren't. It's actually a muscle, and we're able to exercise that muscle. And if we're intentional about it, we're even able to grow our own confidence. And that's so important as business owners, because I think if we're honest, really honest, and we sit with it, there are ways that we're holding ourselves back and self-sabotaging, right? We can spend all the money on the workshops, the degree, the certifications, the licenses, the website, the marketing. But if we're really honest and we really do that deep internal dive, there are sometimes self-sabotaging behaviors, and I noticed that a lot of them come back to our own self-confidence. And we have different seasons of life where we perhaps gain weight or lose weight or feel this way or the other way, or we're in an industry dominated by men. So we're not speaking up in meetings, or, we're the newest person there. So we're just staying quiet. And we all have that shared experience, men and women.
Hmm.
But what's interesting is that the neuroscience tells us that our own self confidence is something we can grow through these little micro experiences and micro exercises. And anytime we're a more confident energy in the world, we're going to be a more successful business owner.
I couldn't agree more. And, our listeners have heard me talk all the time on, everything is energy, and the
Mhm.
way you show up will determine whether the outcome, I believe. And, your confidence and is an energy. So if you're showing up with a confident energy and knowing that you're there to serve, you don't need anything, you're not chasing a sale, you're not chasing a deal, but you're there to serve
Mhm.
because you're confident that you have the resources to help that person, then
Mhm.
that's going to shine through. And again, the imagery that you portray in terms of that confidence too, and how you look online and have to match then the actual physical interaction. So, I know you've got some great tips for our listeners on how to work that muscle. So, help share with us some of the things that you've learned that can help them.
Absolutely. It's interesting, Kara, because I think what you said was so vitally important about the energy and how we hold ourselves in the world and in the business place. I think that's so well documented. We often forget it, but I think it's documented. It's true. We know this, and it's interesting because I found this pattern where the feedback I would get from clients was always so grateful and excited to use their portraits, and you know just excited to move forward now that they had gotten this out of the way. But I noticed a pattern, and I remember being on a walk during the pandemic, and it was sort of toward the end of 2020, and people were coming back into the studio. We were shooting them outside with precautions and things, and I was consistently hearing a little line in the feedback from my clients. And it was different versions of the same sentiment, but it was along the lines of, I'm so grateful that I did this. I think perhaps what was the most interesting part of the experience with you, Maureen, was getting out of my sweats, right? Remember, we were all working from home and kids were learning remotely, and we weren't necessarily getting dressed or showered or back into our business clothes during the day. A lot of us were just on our computers and working from home, and it was
Mhm.
a different version of ourselves. And I was hearing, particularly from women, saying, oh my gosh, just the practice of getting up today and showering and blowing my hair out and having my makeup done in your studio and putting my business clothing back on and my heels and taking on that energy again and having you kind of guide me back to that woman that I had forgotten about was so helpful to me. And
Mhm.
seeing the photos of me looking like a professional, confident woman has just reminded me of who I am and what I'm capable of. And this experience was a celebration of what I've accomplished. And it's reminded me of who I am. And I remember being on a walk and reading a text from a client who shared that with me. And I realized it wasn't the first I had gotten in the last few months that pointed that particular point out.
Mm.
And I was reminded of a psychology theory that I learned about in university. A psychologist by the name of Lawrence Barcelow talks about this embodied cognition theory. And put very simply, that theory sort of touches upon how we see ourselves directly influences how we feel about ourselves.
Mm.
And we know this to be true. In fact, I noticed it with my daughter's dog the other day. She had her hair trimmed and she was like, walking through the house like, you'll notice, like, I look good. She wasn't shaggy. My husband's been on a business trip overseas for a few weeks. So, she was a little bit, but she looked good. She felt good. And she was like trying to catch our eye. And I just had to giggle. And I thought, I see it all the time with business women in particular, right?
Yes.
And we know this is true. When we see high quality imagery of ourselves, looking powerful, looking warm, looking engaging,
Mhm.
looking professional, right? It activates the visual cortex within our brain, the one that's tied to our self image and our identity.
Mhm.
And that just builds what psychologists call self efficacy, which
Mhm.
simply put is just the belief in your own ability to succeed. So when clients step into a photo shoot, no matter how much preparation she's had, and we handle a lot of that by design ahead of time with wardrobe guidance and discussions about setups and locations and props and things like that, there's still nerves, right? We're all still nervous, like a little bit of anxiety, butterflies, excitement, what have you, but there are nerves there. But that process of being guided into confident poses and great posture and teaching the body to act confident, right? And then seeing proof of our own confidence and our own professionalism creates a feedback loop,
Mm.
right? When the body acts confident, even if it doesn't feel confident, when the body acts confident and takes on that energy, the
Mhm.
brain, and our neuroscience tells us this, the brain encodes that confidence within ourselves. The photos reinforce that confidence, and then our confidence grows. And we know, because we are humans with brains and neuroplasticity, we know that we are able to rewire our brains constantly. And
Mm.
we are able to become that version of ourselves who is more confident, who is able to put ourselves out there for greater opportunities, to speak on larger stages and to get into larger boardrooms and to carry ourselves well. We can trick our minds into believing that we are that person.
Mm.
And then we become that person. It's literally a feedback loop. It's fascinating.
I love that. Well,
Mhm,
and it's interesting. I'm just in my head thinking of, I'm a big affirmation person.
mhm,
Um, but just saying an affirmation that doesn't feel real is not going to actually do any good. In fact, it does the opposite.
mhm,
So, one of the things that, we train and talk about even on the team is like, using on my way to being something. So, like,
mhm.
instead of saying I am confident, it would be I am on my way to getting more and more confidence every day or something like that, So
Sure.
it's almost kind of like feeding that loop because I do think you can code in a new being,
Mhm,
by, as you mentioned, acting as if in many ways,
mhm. Absolutely.
So
And there's scientific evidence of that. It's not just some woo-woo idea.
yeah.
There's scientific evidence about, it's January now. We've all done New Year's resolutions. And rather than saying, these are goals, we can put them into that present tense. I will speak on 4 big stages this year.
Mhm,
I will attract 100 fabulous clients. I will hit this particular sales goal. And I think
mhm,
if we start to do these little micro behaviors that draw us toward that version of ourselves where we are confident, where we are showing up as the best version of ourselves, the science is there, the neuroscience is there that we can rewire our brains quite successfully and
mm,
become that new version of ourselves. And
mm.
sometimes we don't even see it. Sometimes it takes having coffee with a friend you haven't seen in a year or two. And she's like, what's going on? You look different. You look really comfortable in the world recently. You're rocking, and even in your own mind, you might think, oh no, you don't even, I forgot a kid at school, pick up whatever we failed to do, we're still arriving with that energy and it's making a difference in our lives and in our business.
Yeah. And how often too, I've really had to practice this. How often do we just say thank you for the compliment?
Yes.
So
Yes.
many times somebody will compliment, I think it's more women that do this, right? We don't want
Always.
any attention. So somebody will say, "Oh my gosh, you look fabulous." And say, "Oh my gosh, I just put this on. This isn't even anything, blah, blah, blah." And we like
Yes.
discount the compliment versus
Always.
saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate that."
Yes. I
Done. End of story. And take it in.
I
It's
say
so
it's
fascinating how we do that. But
all the
that
time.
act,
It's a practice.
yeah.
I say that to my clients or friends. Like if I compliment, oh, I just got this on sale. No, I'm not, and I'm like, girl, it's like watching a phoenix rip her wings off. Like it's a
Mm,
practice for each of us. Nobody is saying that just to say it. We need to
right.
learn how to accept it. It's sincere and it
A
is a
phoenix
practice.
ripping her wings off. I'm gonna have to steal that. I love that.
It
Because I think
is.
that's
It
such
is.
great imagery, that
Yeah.
and there are these micro things, like you said, that we do
Yes.
that strip us down versus build us up, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So, yeah.
It is. It's really interesting. And I think some of that comes back again to the psychology, the neuroscience, the things that I was taught in university and tucked away for many years are now informing what I'm guiding my clients toward and what I'm trying to pass along in little nuggets as well. And there are, a lot of very interesting research on the confidence competence loop, right? Where if we put ourselves out there, Kara, even in a small little experience or circumstance where we have to stretch ourselves, right? By trying something new. And if we succeed in that action, even the littlest bit, we don't even have to hit the home run. We have to get up to the plate and like swing, right? So if we succeed in that new action, the littlest bit, our brain then associates it with the success.
Mm,
And that success turns around and fuels our own belief in ourselves. And there are a lot of research that proves that this confidence competence loop works time and time again. And we can find ways in our day, in our lives. They don't need to be huge. We don't need to fly to Dallas, Texas and give a TED talk in front of 25,000 people in order to stretch ourselves. We just need to move slightly outside our comfort zone. And that is the key, by the way, because our brain is made up of our fear, our amygdala that controls all of the fear. And we have to do these little micro activities that feel just outside of our reach, just outside of our comfort zone. And when we push ourselves into these places and spaces where our confidence perhaps is challenged and we feel a little nervous, it rewires our brain. Our brain says, look at that. You did something, even though the brain, the amygdala, was afraid, and you
yeah,
pushed through. You didn't die because that's what our brain is constantly evaluating to how to keep us alive, right? That's just our caveman DNA. And every time we do something where we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone and we find a little bit of success, we train our brain not to be so fearful, right?
mhm,
I mean, do you remember the first time you left your parents' driveway? I remember being like, what? This is crazy. Like, I can't believe they're letting me drive by myself, like as a new driver, right? And you're so nervous and it seems like everything is so fast and cars are whizzing around you and in and out of lanes. And you're like, I am never going to get the hang of this. This is always going to be frightening. And
mm,
then incrementally you do it and you do it and you do it. And the next thing you know, you're pulling into the Target parking lot and you don't remember driving there, right? It's that easy,
mm,
right? It just takes activity, doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. And I think out of a few of the things you said, which are such great tips, it's like they're not huge leaps, right? It's these little micro moments, as you described, acting as if, right? So starting to just act like the person that you want to be, whether that's how you, from dress to makeup. And, there's, I don't know, this is just my belief. People can take it or believe it, just describing. But, you know, it- I think doing your hair, having makeup, like it is actually proven that people are more likely to work with you if you look the part, right? And that doesn't mean people say, oh, but that's so superficial or whatever. Well, I don't know. It may be superficial or not, but that's the world that we live in.
It
And
is.
so if you want to be successful, dress as if, right? Get your hair done. It doesn't, you know, put on some nice tailored clothes that fit you and go get the business, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because as humans, our brains are constantly evaluating a human face that we see. And
Mhm.
in the science tells us in 1/10 of a second, we are evaluating that person for, can we trust them? Are, are they capable? And then it becomes, do they belong in the room or not? And, the number of successful, quote unquote, people who don't hold themselves well professionally or in their marketing are really holding themselves back, because the majority of clients who interact with us are making those snap judgments subconsciously. Even
Yeah.
if we characterize ourselves as non-judgmental people who've worked on that and have let the narrative go, our brain is naturally doing that because it's encoded within our prefrontal cortex and all of the DNA that is constantly evaluating other humans for whether or not they're safe and capable and competent. It's just our caveman DNA that is still within us to do that within 1/10 of a second.
Yeah.
And if somebody is not holding themselves to a professional standard, how do we expect them to behave professionally when I'm hiring them
Yeah.
within the workforce? So it is important,
Yeah.
and across so many different industries. It really, really is. And there are so many things that we can do as professionals, professional men, professional women, particularly, to bring ourselves to that other version of ourselves. And they're not even expensive, Kara. You
Hmm.
can wear the wrong thing and have the right thing in your closet. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And I know it's overwhelming. And that's one of the things I'm sort of so passionate about helping my clients through. They're very simple formulas for what you should wear that will help you look like the best version of you. It doesn't matter what size you are. There are certain formulas for outfits and wardrobe that are simply going to make you look more pulled together, more professional. And it doesn't cost a ton of money. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be name brand. It doesn't need to be, Gucci, Prada, what have you. It just needs to be appropriate.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I should say too, it's like you could be the smartest person. You could have all the knowledge in the world, and maybe you are the absolute best fit for someone. But if you don't present well, they're not even going to give you the chance to have you show them that. So
Right.
it's like, make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, because if you've already done all the work on all the background research and knowledge and all this other stuff, like, do this little tweak to make
Yeah.
sure that the person is going to give you a realistic shot. So
Yeah.
share with us some of those things, because I'm super curious, what are some of those little tweaks, whether it's, poses or colors people should wear, or, I'm so fascinated by this.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, if we're speaking in the realm of business photography, you want to wear things that are just not distracting or unflattering. If you are on a Zoom call or having a headshot portrait taken, the whole goal is to make you memorable and you to jump out. Your warmth, your warm eyes, your engaging energy, right? So you don't want to wear anything that's going to distract from that, right? You don't want a client looking at you and saying, oh my gosh, the big plaid jacket, and just getting lost in that, because we only have 6 seconds to lock it in. And all of those snap judgments are happening in 1/10 of a second. So I always guide my clients to wearing solid colors, well fitted pieces, staying away from billowy boho styles that, often look nice in person, but on camera can look sloppier and a little bit more distracting, right? So stick with textures rather than patterns, jewel tones, earth tones look great on a variety of skin tones. But you want to look for well fitted pieces, right? And things that are just going to complement and not compete.
So what about, is white something to wear? Like, or what would you say when you say jewel tones? What do you mean by that?
Great question. So white can look great on a lot of people, especially you, Kara, a winter white. Oftentimes it can kind of wash out our coloring and our features. So you have to sort of be careful with it. It also can get blown out,
Mm,
meaning if you have like say I was wearing a white blazer right now, if I wasn't in the right lighting, you would lose the detail, right?
mm,
And it would just kind of reflect quite a bit. Um, Jewel tones look great on a variety of skin tones and really look good on camera as well. And by jewel tones, I mean like deep sapphire blues, deep
mm.
ruby reds, emerald greens, chartreuse, those beautiful deep purpley eggplant colors. I don't know the corresponding jewel for that, but those deep, rich colors really help to brighten the eyes, complement the skin tone, and look great on camera and kind of bring a healthy look to us without being distracting.
Hmm. Good thought. Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. And what do you say about, you know, are there any other colors or outfits to avoid on camera?
Well, if you're going in for your company headshots and you know you're going to use it on LinkedIn, it's quite a tight crop for that particular headshot. So you really want to be mindful of not wearing distracting patterns because if you're in a tight shot and I'm wearing a really big plaids, polka dots, pinstripe, stripes, things like that, the eye is just going to gravitate toward that. And it just looks a little almost chaotic to us. And we might not even realize it as the viewer, but it becomes forgettable. That person becomes forgettable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to ensure that anybody who comes across our headshot really locks in on our face and our energy.
Mm.
And so you want to wear things that are just going to complement again and not compete. So I think it's important to be wearing, again, well structured, fitted, tailored pieces and those that are not going to draw the eye away because we only have very finite amount of time to catch that person's attention, lock it in and have it committed to memory with
Got
the
it.
right energy. And we certainly don't want to be wearing something where it's just overwhelming. We're not smart enough. And quite frankly, everyone is way too distracted, right? We're dealing with very saturated digital marketplaces. We are dealing with an audience who's used to quick, fast, judgments.
Yeah.
People decide very quickly. Again, it's just in our DNA if they're going to stop on your photo, if they're going to stop on your post. And it takes the right imagery. It takes, when we're scrolling, we are much more likely to stop on a human face than just an image. If there's a living room and there aren't people in it, we are more likely to scroll by than if there were humans in it. And again,
Hmm.
it's just our DNA. We are literally programmed from the time we arrive Earthside
Mhm.
to be scanning our environments for other human faces. And we make judgments from the time we're infants about the faces around us, about the expressions and the energy of the faces around us. It's just encoded in our DNA since the time of infancy.
Mhm.
And we continue it on through adulthood. So, having great, warm, engaging, energetic marketing portraits really causes us, or it allows us to attract our ideal audience, the
Mhm.
audience that's going to stop on it and say, I recognize something in her that I've been looking for. I want to work with that person.
Mhm.
And oftentimes our clients can't even articulate it necessarily. And they don't need to, frankly. They just need to recognize us. And the images that we're putting out there are either going to jumpstart that connection or they're going to push people away.
Yeah.
And we are able to have control of that.
Yeah. And I wonder, so I'm assuming too, in terms of like makeup, nails, again, neutral, nothing that's going to distract. Um, Anything else that you would add to that? Or
It's
maybe I'm wrong.
I was just going to say, it's interesting. I kind of guide my clients through a lot of prep, right? Because I want to take away her pain points. And usually the pain points involve, I don't feel connected to my body right now. I don't have any idea what to wear. How much makeup am I supposed to wear? Is it theater makeup? Am I supposed to put on fake lashes in my bathroom? I don't know what I'm doing. And so her pain points are my pain points usually, right? And his pain points are ones that I've sort of helped my husband navigate perhaps. So identifying those pain points and then guiding my clients through that is hopefully helpful to them. And while I do think there are some hard and fast rules, I would never, it's client by client. I have a lot of funky, artistic interior decorators, and I'm not going to say to her, hey, it looks like you always wear a bright, fun, funky coral nail. Perhaps you could just go with the French manicure.
Mm.
Because I think the idea for me as the guide is to really look at my client and understand who they are and what her strengths are, what are her unique values that she's bringing to her business and bringing to her clients, and helping her to articulate them and then amplify them. So it's not as cookie cutter as one might seem.
Okay, that's
Appropriate in
helpful.
one industry is not appropriate in another. I came from, the financial services industry at Merrill Lynch. We had to have stockings on every day. We had to have closed-toed shoes. We had to have, a suit jacket. If we took it off in our office, we were not allowed to walk through the foyer with, a sleeveless blouse on at all in front of clients because we were managing their millions of their dollars. And it was important that we look a certain way subconsciously for our clients. Even if those tech guys came in their shorts and their Adidas sneakers, I needed to be in a suit, and that's appropriate. But if I were a coder in their office, I could get away with something else. So it really is industry by industry care. I hate to make that more confusing, but that's the beauty of what I do. It's always fresh. It's always helping my clients sort of identify who they are, who their ideal audience is, and then helping to tell their story in an authentic way. I often say to clients too, there's no sense in putting on some adulting costume, right? The idea is not to just dress up and be fake. The idea is to kind of hone in on that best version of you and your best features and find ways to dress you, to have your makeup done in a way where you look elevated and polished and professional. And it makes you feel like yourself and the best version of yourself, because that's what translates on film too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering too, for, of course, those that are local. So anybody in the DC metro area, Annapolis area that's listening, or someone that's within driving distance, I can't recommend Maureen highly enough. Because you are so in tune with finding out the need from the what that person's specialty is, what their gifts are, and how do I highlight that? How can I expand upon that and let that be seen visually? I love that you have a makeup person and a hair person on as part of the day and already kind of structured in so that you can just show up and be ready to go and have your hair and makeup done. That's amazing. But for anybody that's not local, or maybe across the country or a different part of the world, and is thinking, wow, I love this. I love everything that she's saying, but how do I find a good photographer that's going to be in tune with these concepts and help me? Like, what tips might you give for somebody from afar?
It's a great question, right? I think it's important to look at their work. I think it's important to really kind of run through their portfolio and see if those are the kinds of images that will tell your story too, right? I might not be a chef, but I could see photos taken by a particular photographer in a kitchen of a chef and know whether or not they're going to resonate when she's telling or he is telling my story, right? So
Mhm.
I think kind of looking through their body of work, asking in your community Facebook pages for recommendations. I think leaning into that mind hive usually gives us good feedback, and then doing a little bit of research. I'm always happy to make recommendations for photographers with whom I've worked around the country. I do quite a bit of work in California. I've done quite a bit of work in, the DC, New York area as well. But I also attend workshops and events with photographers from all over the country, from coast to coast. So I'm blessed enough to know other people in my industry, and I'm happy to make those recommendations or referrals. But I think it also comes back to, do you feel comfortable with them? Are you drawn in by their work, right? Are you drawn in by the style of their storytelling? Does that resonate with you,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you're a anthropologist and there are no photos of an anthropologist, but everything else seems to kind of draw you in and resonate with you. That's an important tell. I think, we have to listen to our bodies and to ourselves a little bit more too. Um, I've certainly had friends recommend doctors, attorneys, people with whom I just didn't feel it when I went in for that appointment ahead of time. And I just thought, gosh, this woman has all of the degrees and comes very highly recommended, but it's just, I can't put my finger on it, not going to be a fit for me.
Mhm.
Right. So it's important to listen to ourselves. And I think that is the beauty of getting to my stage in midlife, right? Because we start to trust ourselves and our gut a bit more.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think, yeah, I mean, and our listeners have heard me talk about this a lot on the show, listening to your intuition and knowing when it's a gut yes and a gut no,
Mhm.
and if there's still a maybe in there, maybe just do a little bit more research until you kind of get a feeling one way or the other. But this has been so incredible. I appreciate all your guidance. I know you had some, you know, great tips. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, or let us know how we can best reach you? So if anybody wants to know more about you, um, you know,
Sure, I appreciate that. I love helping, clients create beautiful, authentic, eye-catching portraits that are going to help them, attract their ideal audience and ultimately drive sales and opportunities. So if anyone is interested, they're welcome to check out some of my work at maureenporto.com. And there's an opportunity within the website to fill out a contact card. I'd love to chat. If there are other business owners looking for advice or feedback about their website or their messaging or their marketing strategy, I am happy to, jump on a call and kind of guide them through or give them some free advice or feedback. I love mentoring other small business owners and helping them, particularly when you see other business owners who are at the beginning stages and you see so much of yourself in it and you're like, let me give you a couple of, cheat codes here. This will save you a little bit of time. This is a great resource for you. I love the power of the hive, right? I love being able to say to my clients, here are your images. Here's a great person for your website. You know, here's a woman who can help you with SEO. Here's another resource that can help you with your graphic design. So now you can take these photos and quickly put them into something that's going to be a little bit better than just Canva, right? So I feel like I've curated this almost concierge directory of other business owners across lots of other industries too. So I love being able to make those connections. So if anyone needs anything else to do with, marketing or strategy or telling their story, their graphic design or websites or what have you, I'm happy to share whatever knowledge and resources I have. So the website is always a
Oh,
great place.
I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're a
Thank
gift,
you,
and
Karen. Thank you,
um,
Karen.
love your energy. And we will make sure to put your website in the show notes, but it's at maureenporto.com.
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So we'll
Thank you.
put it in the show notes so that it's
Never enough
there.
time with you. I could chat with you all day. I felt like that every time I'm with you, our photo shoot, I was like, oh my gosh, the number of parallels and
I
interesting things. I
know.
always learn a lot from you.
Oh,
It's a pleasure always. Thank you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. I'm so glad we could finally make this happen. And yeah, for any of our listeners, I mean, what Maureen just unpacked for you, which is like, wow, she is open to giving you guidance, strategy, so definitely reach out to her if you have any questions or want her to just give you some tips online of what you might be able to do to help, present better. Because I think that, you know, all of you, everyone listening, is uniquely powerful, uniquely gifted, and you have within you such light. And so let Maureen, help you shine that better online so that then that equates to more people getting to know you. So thank you. What you just offered was such an awesome gift for our listeners. So we appreciate that very
This is
much.
the year. This is the time. Let's do it. Everybody, let's all march forward. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you again.
Thank you.